Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns back on the practice field out in Berea, getting ready for a matchup of 2-1 teams in the AFC North. They will host the Baltimore Ravens 1 o'clock on Sunday. Amari Cooper talked about the quick passes early that got the Browns offense going and his connection with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally how you get into the flow of the game. As it pertains to the passing game, you want to try to complete the easy passes first, both for the quarterback and the receiver, just to get that rhythm going. You know, once I get the ball in my hands on like an easy catch, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to light it up, and I assume it's the same from the quarterback position as well. I was interested how much communication could help with the wide receiver quarterback relationship. We just communicate, we're not shying away from even over-communicating because we're just trying to get better and make plays for the team. And for that to happen, we definitely need to have chemistry. So it's getting better and better every week.
What kind of communication goes on? Is it more than I'm open, look for me?
Nah, it's more so just talking through every route that's in the game plan. Making sure we both see it the same way, and if we see it differently, and we communicate about that. That's mainly what it is.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, what did you think just of what you saw from Watson?
I think you just saw basically, I think everything we thought we were getting. But understanding, last year, and look, we probably all put basically the cart before the horse last year, and just thinking he was going to return to the game and just return back to, being, a quarterback that could play at a top level. Who was a little different. I thought, week one wasn't as bad as others did. I thought, once, when you went from the 2-minute mark of the first half into the second half, I thought he played a lot better. I think we all can agree that obviously the Monday Night Football game against Pittsburgh was not one of his better performances. I think there were a lot of people that felt the question was, at least for me, it wasn't if he was going to return, it was when he was going to return. But I think we saw it and, getting going early, and I think that was the key. And obviously, a bunch of short balls, obviously Elijah Moore involved. Return to the screen game, and the screen game is going to be a big part of this now again, because the screen game is going to be more of an extension of what they're going to lose from running production with the loss of Nick Chubb. But you just saw a more confident guy, and I think once he broke a couple of sacks, got out, still made plays, I think within himself he kind of just maybe felt maybe the confidence level of, all right, I've got it, this is where I am, this feels right, this is who I am. And then just continued to make big plays, and then obviously delivered the dagger throw late in the game on the long touchdown pass to Cooper. But you saw a nice mix. You saw a short underneath. You saw the screen game. You saw a lot more deep balls, taking vertical shots here, which is going to be key, because in order to open up this running game, they're going to have to show that they can hit some of these vertical shots. Otherwise, teams are just going to game plan to take away the run and make Deshaun beat them. Do I feel better about the possibility of Deshaun beating defenses now than I did last week? Absolutely. So I think it's going to be the point now where maybe he starts to string these together and this becomes a little bit more the norm. I think it was just basically getting the opportunity to break that glass, get himself out and back to being himself. And, we saw a lot more, better showing of what we expected to see of Deshaun Watson on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans.
How do you think the offense evolves from here? Because it's everything in the NFL evolves. So what do you see as kind of the next phase of where they go with this?
Well, I think it's still maybe a little bit of a work in progress, obviously, because now you got a game plan. Look, right away, those 20 to 25 Nick Chubb touches, those are gone. They're not in the script. He's not walking back in the locker room this year. But you got to see some fun things. Look, Jerome Ford had a high school pedigree of being a wide receiver. I doubt the Tennessee Titans had in their game plan last week, okay, well, the running backs lined up wide. He ran a sluggo, seriously, and he ran it really, really well and just fried our secondary to the point where he scored a touchdown. And just incorporating other things. Everybody kind of knows what Kareem can bring to this offense. His effectiveness as far as, pass pro, his effectiveness as far as receivers, effectiveness in the screen game. There'll be some times where they're going to look to use Pierre Strong and try to just get his overall 4.3 speed in, to the open field. But there's still a lot of talent here. There's still a lot of skill here. And the one thing we didn't see through the first 2 weeks was kind of the featuring of the wide receivers, whether it was Cooper, whether it was Donovan Peoples-Jones, whether it was Elijah Moore. And you saw them make the attempt to make sure they got all three involved on Sunday. And we still really haven't got much of a return out of the tight ends yet to this point. And then there's still the factor of Deshaun with his legs. There's still a lot here offensively. I think the run game, look, I don't know if any of us truly know here. They're going to look what works best for Jerome Ford. They're going to look what works best for Kareem Hunt. They're going to look what works best for Pierre Strong. It's going to be a little bit different. Maybe, we all thought maybe we're going to start to see more inside zone this year because Deshaun likes to play out of the gun. It's just a better style for him. But without Nick Chubb, maybe that's not going to be the case. Maybe they'll stick more with a more outside zone. It just allows two of their better players, and Joel Bitonio and obviously Wyatt Teller, to get out and basically just, even if holes aren't there, they will make holes. Obviously, just do their physicality, and being in the pole game and running. There's still a lot there, and I think that was the biggest thing we needed to see Sunday, was that this team can still score a boatload of points, even if Nick Chubb's not going to be a part of it. And, there's going to be a role for everybody. It's more of a baseball lineup now. It's not going to be like, well, let's try to get a couple of bases, couple of players on base and have Nick Chubb hit a home run. It's going to be a little bit more, complimentary, getting everybody involved. And if Deshaun Watson has to resist urge and just say, I'm going to throw the ball to whatever guy is open, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, the connection between Cooper and Watson was pretty evident. And remember, the referee took another long touchdown away that should have been a touchdown. Watson talked about that connection with Amari Cooper.
It's awesome to have a smart receiver like Coop, who's a veteran guy who understands what we want from him, what the game plan is basically coming about, and then also just what he's seeing out there, with the coverages. So with him being able to communicate with me and I communicate with him, and when we're on the same page, a lot of good things can happen.
How important is it to have that type of communication back and forth with receivers, especially being able to
It's very important because, some things that I won't be able to see, in live action, he might be on the backside and I'm working front side of the play call. So there's different things that I won't be able to see that he's been able to communicate to keep me up. And when I come to the sideline, I see the pictures, and then I'm able to check that out and, make some big plays for him.
Yeah, and the evolution of that, Jeff, is there's a lot of trust between those two, and it's already he's going to be the one, and you're going to add on to Amari Cooper.
Well, the thing that makes it so it's not like it's 13, 14 targets. They're very, very efficient together. And, you can go, the times where it seems like you almost go a drive and Amari's not involved. And then the next thing the next drive, it's 2 for 38. And it has a significant difference. Obviously, if it doesn't result in points, obviously it flips the field at worst. So the efficiency of it. But it's also having a trust factor to it. Look, there's a lot of wide receivers in the NFL that are going to come to the sidelines every play and say, I was open. I was wide open. I was wide open. But, Amari can say, hey, you might need to hold back here. If we're going to run this skinny post, the underneath guy's shading off me. Normally it's 5 yards. He's actually staying with me to 7 yards. So you got to hold it a split second longer. Otherwise that window's not going to be there. So it's such a trust factor in Amari being an open and honest guy. And look, Amari Cooper just wants to win. Obviously, he's had a lot of stops within the NFL. Not a lot of team successful where he's gone. He wants to be a player. Obviously, they all want to produce. They all want to be part of producing, but he does want to win. So the fact that he can be honest and say, look, don't look here. Don't look for me on this one. Most likely, I'm the guy that's going to draw coverage, which should free up X, Y, and Z. And that's what being a team player is. And, with Amari, and he's, not like a lot of wide receivers in the NFL. Yes, he's a really good one, but he's, also unselfish, and he's also, more about the team and making sure, that the team's ultimate goal of winning is a goal that he is going to share with the rest of the team. And for Deshaun, you need a guy like that because, look, it's still a work in progress after all this time of being away. And the fact that you're doing this now, and you didn't come back to the offense you were in. You didn't come back to players that you played with. So, still, trying to be the best player you can, trying to perform at a high level, with still a lot of newness around him. And to this point, it's only through 9 games. Having guys, be honest and help him get to where he needs to be. That's what it's all about. It doesn't happen all the time in the NFL, but certain teams certainly can make that work.
So this is interesting as well. Browns efficiency ranks after this game. This from Jake Trotter. Offense, 23rd in efficiency. Defense first, special teams third. So the new coordinators in the top 3 early on. And the offense is to be expected because, like we just got done talking about, they're kind of evolving, and you take Nick Chubb out of it, and that's gonna slow the process of being efficient down even a little bit more because you do have to figure out what are you going to do with those 25 plays or 18 plays where you're going to turn around and hand it to Chubb.
Well, the first thing this shows you is the offense. They don't have to be world beaters. They don't have to perform like the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't have to perform like the Buffalo Bills. They have that luxury. look, small methodical drives, keep killing clock. Always try to chase points. Field goals are never going to be a bad thing for this team. Most importantly, don't turn the ball over. Yes, they did turn the ball over once on Sunday. They were able to overcome it through the defense. But what those two things tell you, the special teams unit and the defense are playing at a very, very high level. The offense, it's just going to be about, obviously, not turning the ball over, not taking penalties, trying to play ball control. And they still have the capabilities of doing that. Maybe now the short passing game will become more the extension of what you're going to lose from Nick Chubb. But they don't have to go out there with this pressure on them that they got to score 35, 40, which was the case last year and certainly seasons past here for the Browns. They just got to go out and play solid football for 60 minutes. They certainly have the guys to do it. They certainly have, the talent to do it. There's enough skill players still left, even with the loss of Nick Chubb. So it's just going out there and just playing smarter and, not being as risky. But you saw, though, the way they played Sunday, they were able to hit on a bunch of stuff, and that opened up bigger stuff, which then made everything just work smoother for them. You got a performance of 26 out of 33, 27 out of 33, by far the most efficient, start Deshaun has had here. And I truly believe that this is one for Deshaun where it's just kind of more of like all right, we're going to be all right. I have this feeling that he just looked at himself after this game and said, you know what, whatever was the past, 8 starts was the past 8 starts. I can't control that. I'm me. I'm still me. And I am now me within this Browns offense.
So Browns back on the practice field. Joel Bitonio is getting some rest, ankle and his normal scheduled day off, if you will, because he's a veteran. Kareem Hunt, ribs and groin, not practicing, but they do expect him to play. Greg Newsome was back. And then also today, Deshaun Watson kind of rested his throwing shoulder, expected to face the Ravens. Nothing. That's more of a, you know what, we're going to ask you to throw the ball a whole lot moving forward for the next how many ever weeks. Let's take a day off here.
Well, he threw the ball 73 times within 6 days. Obviously, 40 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 33 against Tennessee. Short week, obviously back to the practice field. And he wanted to amp everything up. Obviously, if the Browns had won against Pittsburgh, maybe their game plan would have been arrested. But, you're 1-1, and you absolutely needed this win against Tennessee. So, yeah, go out, take your mental reps or whatever. If you don't want to throw today, that's more than okay. Joe Bitonio, I think we've reached the point where Joe Bitonio's days of practicing on Wednesdays are probably well in the past, and deservedly so. Kareem Hunt, you take your first hits in, 9.5 months. It's going to take a little bit more of a toll on you. Kareem gets his rest. Genu coming back. It was close for Genu to play, but I think the Browns just felt they didn't need to rush him back on Sunday. So what was the sense? Give him another 48, 72 hours, get him ready to go. The Browns are in a really good situation. We'll still see the way this works out for Baltimore. They did get some players back, but they got a boatload of players still out from practice. But right now for the Browns, things are looking good. Things seem to be, working in a real positive direction for them.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast is now going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Larry out of Cleveland. I'd like to say that, the Browns, they back on fire. Deshaun is the old Deshaun we've seen. He's going to get better because I think they took it personal when Chubb went down. More to reveal. Watch how they start clicking even more. They're going to take this division because the Browns are playing together, and most of all, they take his adversity and turn it into a positive. Let's go, Browns. I'm a diehard fan. Keep doing what you're doing, and let's go to playoffs, and we go further. Let's go, Browns. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, I kind of agree. There are going to be bumps in the road with Deshaun Watson. I was concerned after the Pittsburgh game, but the guy we saw is kind of what I expected. And there's more there. But as far as the division goes, and I think you agree, it's there. If the Browns play like they're capable of playing, they're in that mix.
Oh, for me, there's no question about it. Look, this defense, it has looked absolutely incredible. And your first thinking is after 3 weeks of all the newness, obviously the coordinator and all the players, you would think, okay, well, 3 weeks, then you'll start to play even better. The fact that you would think with possibly more time that these guys could even start to play better, it absolutely baffles your mind. But now you're looking at these other teams, and the questions are starting to come, and they're a little bit bigger, obviously, for the other teams here. Like the Cincinnati Bengals, look, what Joe Burrow did Monday night was fantastic. But, is this going to be a sustainable thing where Joe Burrow is out there playing at maybe 60% for the rest of the entire season? That means everything else on their team has to click and has to be perfect. Pittsburgh, look, Kenny Pickett, it's great that they can hit a couple of big shots every now and then. And look, the Raiders defense is going to make everybody feel better about themselves. And keep in mind, Browns get to play these teams as well. So you have that going for yourself. And then Baltimore, look, I mean, with all the injuries and the loss of running backs and the loss of wide receivers, this was a team that was trying to, change from Lamar Jackson, being the biggest playmaker on their team and just being a traditional quarterback and running when he had to now where you might just have to go back to what you always did with Lamar, which doesn't, there's been times where it's great, but, the rest of the team overall isn't as good as it was back in those days. So for the Browns, everything for them right now, I would say through 3 weeks, they've started to rise, whereas everybody else, there's certainly some questions, that are starting to become, bigger and are starting to linger for the other three franchises within the North.
Well, we've seen Brian Baldinger break down offensive linemen. This is an interesting one too because it's an offensive lineman's perspective on Myles Garrett. So here's Brian Baldinger breaking down Myles Garrett against the Titans.
This is the third play of the game for Tennessee. 3rd and 3 right here. First third down, third play. Myles Garrett gets in that 4-point stance. He's going to let Andre Dillard feel his punch. Like he felt his punch all day. Like he knew the power rush was working, gets to Tannehill, he throws the ball errant to D-Hop. All right, now, tight ends have no idea how to defend this guy. No idea. Like they're touching each other so that they can hear the snap count. It doesn't matter. Like before Derrick Henry gets the ball, he's already past those tight ends. It's just a waste of time. It's a silly scheme. And guys are getting excited too. All right, now here we go. 3 out of the first 8 plays, he was a human wrecking ball. Like, here it is. Ryan Tannehill, the ball's up in the air. That's a fumble, a forced fumble. Somehow Henry falls on top of it. Right here, he's going to force a hold. The flag's going to come out as Tannehill tries to get outside the pocket. There's the flag. You force a hold. All right, now you keep doing this. 5-man rush right here. All right, you got Myles on this side. You got Oko inside coming over the guard. Oko wins on the twist. All right, it's like a pierogi sandwich right here. And then Myles just like, you want to know what that elf looks like or feels like? Myles tossed you to the ground.
And Jeff, again, that's from the perspective of somebody who's used to trying to deal with that. And it's a good indication of how much of a problem Jim Schwartz is making Myles Garrett.
Well, the thing is that the talent, this was the plan always for Myles. This would always be the plan for any defensive coordinator. But, you can't just do it with any old guys playing with him. They've got to be legit personnel because you got to be able to have the confidence to say, well, Zadarius Smith can go one-on-one with any left tackle in the league. Okoronkwo can do the same thing against any left tackle. If you truly want to make Myles Garrett as special as he can be and wreaking the havoc that he does, the other guy's got to be able to perform and perform up to a certain level. And I think that was the biggest difference they made in the effort of getting all these these more skilled players on the defensive line in here, because all eyes, and we all know the play from later on in the game, all eyes are on Myles all the time. Well, that's great, but the problem is if all 22 eyes are on Myles, that means how much are you paying attention to the Smiths, the Okoronkwos, and of course even Alex Wright and Maurice Hurst, who both had played big roles for this team on Sunday. If you're getting to the point where we're talking about the Browns, 4th defensive end and 3rd or 4th defensive tackle starting to be guys that can produce, I mean, it's lights out, because that's just an incredible defensive line if you can start to get production from those guys on your, in your groupings.
Well, you alluded to it earlier, how good the Browns have been through 3 weeks. This kind of puts it into numbers. First downs allowed this season, the Browns are number 1 with allowing only 21 first downs. The next closest is almost twice as many, the Bills, at 41, and the Cowboys have allowed 46. I know it's still early, and you look at it, it hasn't been some of the higher-end offense, although you could argue the Bengals would be. Burrow's banged up. How confident are you saying this defense is really good?
I'm a lot more. For me, it's just how quick it came. I mean, you truly thought with Jim Schwartz, the amount of personnel, the amount of dedication that was put into making this roster as far as defensively, whether it was the defensive lines, the linebackers, the secondary, all of it looks great. And you can say that, oh wow, this is a really, really great group. But when you start saying things like on paper, what does it truly mean? Does it truly mean anything? And seeing it come to fruition so quickly, this is quite a special group. And I mean, to keep in mind, the way people want to talk about this team, the Browns given up 18 points on defense. Yes, the numbers are said differently, but the Browns didn't give up 2 touchdowns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They gave up, 1 touchdown. They've given up 1 touchdown on defense through 3 games. They held 2 teams, the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals, to 3 points apiece to this point. It is absolutely insane what they were doing. They've given up 6 points per game as a defense through 3 games, Dave.
Yeah, and again, there's going to be bumps in the road, but man, is it fun to watch that group get after it. Kevin Stefanski, we alluded to this in the first segment. He talked about the Ravens' new offensive scheme.
Yeah, I think there's a few big differences, and then there's a lot of similarities to what they've done before. They've carried over certain elements of their offense that will look very similar, and then there's other elements, especially with some of the personnel groupings, that are very different. But he's getting the ball out on time, accurately. His completion percentage is very high, and I think that speaks to both the coaching and the player doing a great job in that scheme.
But again, Jeff, much like the Browns' offense, the Ravens' offense is even more a work in progress than the Browns, I think.
Well, the problem is you talked about this and what you wanted to do, but you have Odell Beckham Jr. out, you have Bateman out. They already lost J.K. Dobbins for the season. I believe Gus Edwards returned to practice today, but I mean, you run it out there. Running back Melvin Gordon, for God's sakes, who's outside in the car. Melvin Gordon. So this is something still that they're trying to work on here. Meanwhile, Zay Flowers has been, a nice addition for them. Mark Andrews really hasn't settled in here yet. So, it's kind of like a learning on the fly, but, you're already going into game 4 here. We shouldn't be talking about like we're learning it on the fly, but they've had so many guys in and out of the lineup. There's no really opportunity for them to build cohesion to this point. So that's obviously held them back here. And we'll see the way it goes because, in Lamar's mind and what Lamar knows, and as a former MVP as he is, look, if this ain't working, I've kind of done this already once on my own. If I think I got to do what I got to do, Lamar might turn it back into the Lamar show if that's what it takes.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take another timeout. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit more about the Browns offense. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. Advanced stats like DVOA has the Browns ranked as the number 4 overall team. Our offense is ranked number 18 and defense is number 1. Ravens, our next opponent is number 8 overall team. Their offense number 11, their defense number 5. And as much love as Miami's been getting, it's actually the Buffalo Bills who are ranked number 1 overall team in DVOA. Dolphins number 2. My question is, when watching the Browns, do your eyes see those stats that they've applied to the Browns? Number 1 defense, number 18 offense. Thank you. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, I would say that's pretty accurate so far. They got to keep doing it. If the defensive line can play like it has played and get into the backfield like that, good luck running an offense against them.
Well, I mean, I think the expectation here is that maybe the defense, maybe you don't stay one forever, but the expectation would be that the offense does rise a little bit, and start to improve a little bit. And look, for the Cleveland Browns, it's 6 turnovers in 2 games. In 3 games, that's still not good from the offensive side of the ball. That's a number you would obviously look to improve upon. This would get back to obviously the efficiency talks that we were, having earlier. So you think that it'll start to level off, maybe, look, I think the defense is going to be a top 1, top 2, top 3 defense this entire season. I think the offense has the capabilities of being a little bit better than 18th overall. They're just going to have to find a way, how are they going to get their running yards now, in order to set up a little bit more play action along, in order to, control time of possession a little bit more here. But, a little early to kind of get caught up in those numbers. What we see right now is an offense that's improving. And what we see right now, that a defense is just absolute lights out. And then we talked about a bunch, and we talked about, when Jim Schwartz first came in and he talked about his defensive secondary. And he loved them. And he said, yeah, we're going to let him play a lot of man coverage. But Jim's theory was if the quarterback doesn't get the opportunity to throw the ball, it doesn't matter what coverage I play anyway.
Yeah, and so far that's been the case. The other thing, the other reason I'm confident about the defense, I think Jim Schwartz it knows what adjustments will be made if certain things happen. He's been doing this long enough. You're not going to find anything that happens. There are no new things that will happen to this defense that he doesn't have the answer for. You alluded to the running game. This is really interesting. So we've seen Elijah Moore used in a bunch of different ways, and this is from Next Gen Stats. So Elijah Moore is number 1. Cush is cushion, so that's 8 yards of cushion they're giving him off the line of scrimmage, and he is getting 5.9 yards of separation. So the reason the Browns are getting the ball to him quickly is because of the ability they have to get him the ball to make plays. Kevin Stefanski talked about Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I would say it's game 3, so there's certain things that you want to grow. There's certain things that you're trying to set up for later. You're trying to make yourself hard to defend, but ultimately we think very highly of number 8. And like I've told you guys before, I think he's good outside, inside, backfield, really anywhere you put him. So just a player that when you're going into this week, that Baltimore has somebody wearing number 8 jersey and following him all around the formation. And they'll have certain calls when he's here and when he's there. So just always trying to grow those packages, but also recognizing that things evolve over the course of a season.
And Jeff, he had the ball. He had the fumble where it was ripped out of his hands. That can't happen, obviously. But he's a guy that if he breaks one of those tackles early, now a 4-yard gain is a 24-yard gain or even a touchdown.
Well, there were a lot, and I feel honestly, as well. The screen, I think, we'll turn to the flea flicker screen. I think he just needed to show maybe a tad bit more patience. I think he was just, trying to put his nose down, make sure he got a first down, kept the chains moving. But if he had just dialed it back a tiny bit, he would allow these guys to set it up, and he would have had one jump cut to the sideline. And look, there's not many guys in the NFL that are going to run down Elijah Moore with his 4.35 speed. But the important thing is that Elijah is catching all these short balls over the middle. Tackled or not, it's important because, as we just heard Coach say, there's going to be some pumps here. And then there's going to be times where if, he's crossing the field and there's one defender as everybody else is going towards the other side of the field, Deshaun Watson takes a couple steps towards that way. Now you have a defender that says, do I have to commit to the receiver? Do I have to commit to Deshaun Watson? And the next thing you know, Elijah Moore slipped past you. And again, there's going to be nobody that's going to be able to chase down Elijah Moore, from behind. I think the big approach Sunday was trying to get him more involved just as a receiver, which is what I totally agree with, because it's great that he's doing 75 different things. But until he can go out there and just prove he can be a consistent receiver, putting him everywhere else is doing him a disservice. It's doing an offense a disservice, and it's not really giving the effect to the defense that you truly want it to. Now, once he's shown to be a consistent pass catcher, averaging 5 receptions through 3 games, you've got to respect that. So you see him wherever he's lined up, okay, and then there's your call. And just like Coach said, now he's moving around. So now we got to now he's going to the other side. We got to be responsible for that call. Now he's in the backfield. We got to be responsible for that call. All this in mind, Amari Cooper's still the best wide receiver on the field. So now you're talking all about what number 8's doing and having less and less conversation about Amari Cooper, who's potentially the most dangerous guy on the field. You still have, obviously, the tight ends, which we haven't seen enough from yet. It's really, really working right now, very well right now for Coach Stefanski. And I think that now that he and Deshaun, after having this game together, and, the whole chest bump moment where I think it was, Deshaun, that's it. Like, I see it. I know it. I get it. Like, I totally feel this now. I just think this offense is going to play at a much better pace here on out. They just needed that first time for it to go well and everybody just kind of to say, oh, okay, well, this is going to work. And I think it's just going to get easier from here on out.
Yeah, and again, Moore's the type of guy, there might be 3 receptions that end up 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards. It's the 4th one that you're waiting for because it puts pressure on the defense to tackle a fast guy in the open field. Colin Cowherd on the ranks for the top teams in the NFL after Week 3 and where the Browns fit.
Number 7.
Cleveland. Maybe I have them low, but the defense is insane. You know they've only allowed 490 yards through 3 games? That's the lowest since 1970. Deshaun Watson's not the same, but he can make plays. They lead the NFL in yardage differential, which is something gamblers look at. They've got to get it right offensively, and they will miss Nick Chubb. But this defense, they're going to be in every single game they play. They're like Pittsburgh. They'll just hang around and steal wins even when the offense is bad. Cleveland at 7.
Jeff, nobody knows. You can't say Deshaun Watson's not going to be the same. That's a ridiculous statement.
It's done, and look, you know my feeling on this type of journalism. Let's take what's in front of us. 1 week can be bad, 2 weeks can be great, 1 week can be okay, and you're not going to be able to write the entire story. Because I'm going to tell you right now, all these people who said he was done, where are all these people after he went 27 to 33 for 289 yards? Oh, it was the Titans' passing defense. They had already given 305 in the last 2 games. Yeah, but they also got back their starting safety and their number 1 corner, and they still got fried by the Cleveland Browns. Again, I still think for those, there were so many that I think were rooting just generally against Deshaun Watson. For me, it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. And now that we've established, that we've erased the question, I don't think this is going to be a talking point anymore. I think he just truly needed to feel, all right, this is it. I am back in my zone. I am comfortable. I know I can do this, because even every athlete doubts themselves. It's just the way it goes. They're the harshest critics. If they weren't their harshest critics, there's no way they would have gotten to the levels that they have gotten to. Now that he is dialed in and he is confident and knows, yes, I can make this work. I now know I can make this work. And the fact that I think, look, it's not great for the Browns that Nick Chubb's not coming back, but I think for Deshaun Watson to have to put the onus on himself even more, saying, look, there is no question about it anymore. I've got to get this right. It is 100% now on me. And for guys like that, if you're supposed to be that guy, that's the type of pressure you want on yourself. And so far, the first start he had to take without Nick Chubb, he went out there and basically just shut the door on everybody. And basically, in my mind, he's back in cruise control.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast is now going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll talk a little bit more about that Ravens game coming up Sunday at 1. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Looking at this Ravens offense, as much talent as they have, and I understand that they're injured, their offense really isn't that productive if you really think about it. I think they're very, really exploitable. I think Todd Monken is very, very overhyped. So I think Todd Monken is going to be exploited by Jim Schwartz. But I think it all starts with our offense. Our offense has to score when our defense gets stopped, because stopping Lamar Jackson is one thing, but their defense is a whole nother beast. So they have a really good coaching staff, a really, really good defensive coordinator. So Kevin is going to have his hands full for scoring and making sure Deshaun can lead this offense and keep his composure and get us a win. So, yeah, go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, again, I don't know if it's overhyped. I think they got to figure some things out offensively. You know, every team in the NFL does early. Ravens are a little bit behind the 8-ball offensively because they've had so many guys injured.
Even defensively, look, I didn't think the Ravens defense was that great as far as the defense has been in the last few years. You know, there's names on that defense, but not a lot of them are proven. Your best player is your middle linebacker, which is great. But, I mean, your middle linebacker, I mean, we saw how important the defensive line play is here for Cleveland. Look, they're the Ravens, and they always been a challenge, certainly for the Browns here. But they've had success here, obviously. They got a win against them last year. Even in the Baker Mayfield era, they had wins against this team. I think the Ravens have a lot more to prove. I love the fact that this first meeting between the two franchises is in Cleveland as opposed to Baltimore. Cleveland has the opportunity here for 3-1. And I just think the confidence level for the Cleveland Browns after what they did last week, basically rallying around the family after all that went on, losing Nick Chubb, losing a game that they had no business losing in Pittsburgh the week before, and all that pressure to right it and make a statement that they were going to be okay. And obviously the statement was a lot even bigger than that, as it was a 27-3 victory over the Tennessee Titans. I just think, this team believed in themselves, and I think they all play for each other. And after putting it together, another victory like that, 27-3 over the Titans, I think they don't truly care about who they play right now. They believe that their brand of football, the way they're playing right now, is sustainable.
So former NFL defensive back Richard Sherman talking about the Browns-Ravens game, what he thinks about it. This from FS1 Undisputed.
I'm leaning Cleveland very heavily because for the first time since he's come back from all the chaos, all the distractions, Deshaun Watson looked like his old self in this last game. He was striking the ball down the field. He was pushing it down the field to Amari Cooper, his best receiver. He dropped a few dimes to Peoples-Jones. There were some plays in there that made me feel like, wow, Deshaun Watson is looking like the player. If he plays like this the rest of the season, they're going to have a shot.
And again, Jeff, the reason we use Richard Sherman, that's a guy that's played defensive back against Deshaun Watson, so he knows what it looks like.
Look, and this is why I love where we're at here as far as, people that we get working within the game now. I mean, these guys are going literally right, from finishing their careers right into broadcasting, right into, analysis. And, when you hear something like that, and I think it's kind of where I think it just needed him to feel like it was him again. And he's got the talent, obviously, around him. But again, we talked about that. Everybody wants to talk about that 2020 season he had with the Houston Texans. They did nothing. So he played lights out, one of the best quarterback seasons in the history of the NFL. He doesn't have to do that. He does not have to do that this year. He can win a lot of games, 20-13, 20-17, 20-16, because this defense is going to be such a dominant product. He's going to be able to be playing back to the level that he's comfortable with zero pressure on him in each game, and that's going to be a fun thing for Deshaun Watson.
The other thing is he's a guy that just in the limited time that I've seen, he wants to win more so than stats. He wants to be playing conference championship games, Super Bowl. Those are the things that are important to him. Let's look at this. How do you think the Browns defense defends Lamar Jackson? What's Jim Schwartz going to do defensively against Jackson?
I don't think it's going to be anything different than what we've seen to this point. Look, Miles Garrett had a sack in 2.23 seconds. The Browns feel that their defensive line, and look, the Baltimore Ravens offensive line is not a set of world beaters. He's just going to continue to do what he does. And look, if I have the quarterback off rhythm, that means everything is off rhythm. And it just makes everybody's life easier. So even if you're a tail slow on your coverage, you've already gotten it made back for it because they have the quarterback off his timing. And if you're Jim Schwartz right now, why are you changing a dang thing? Why would you change anything right now? You basically had the Cincinnati Bengals. Granted, Joe Burrow was dinged up, tap out in the fourth quarter. You just had the Tennessee Titans basically tap out in the fourth quarter. They had no answer for what you were doing. So you're just going to continue to bring it and just have this defensive line play as aggressive as they can, as physical as they can. Because even, the little bit, and even look, Derrick Henry, it's very rare you see Derrick Henry get popped. Derrick Henry got hit hard by Myles Garrett. Derrick Henry got hit hard by Grant Delpit. This defense, and I'm telling you right now, that this film, and there's the other teams watching this, and they know what's real and what isn't, and they're watching this Cleveland Browns defense. And I just heard, Micah Parsons did a segment on I think Bleacher Report. These guys know what's real and what's not, and you've got everybody in the NFL right now acknowledging what this Cleveland Browns defense is doing. So it kind of gives you a testament to just how good it truly is.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Everybody have a great week.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. The Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon straight ahead. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Deshaun Watson talked about getting things rolling early in the game with those quick passes, the short quick passes early.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's just really, it's about completion. Send the ball, hit the receiver's hands, and they catch it, and it's positive. And not just for myself, but for the offense, for Kevin, for everyone. So when you see completions, regardless of how much it is, it definitely creates that positivity, and everything else kind of flows from there.
And let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, Network 216. Casey, those are the kind of things that just kind of you build on them.
Yeah, it's just like a shooter in basketball who's struggling. They just got to see it go in the hole, and then after that, they don't think about the pass; they just make the pass. And you saw that they came out, especially to Elijah Moore early, hitting a lot of those short, quick passes, kind of an extension of the running game, got him in his rhythm. And as the game went on, you saw the intermediate passes start to come into play, and before you knew it, he was hitting high-level NFL throws on the sideline, and that's where he's got to be. And there's got to be a marriage between play calling and the quarterback, kind of understanding how to get your guy in a rhythm. And then after he got in his rhythm, the game kind of just starts to take care of itself. And that's where Deshaun Watson found himself on Sunday.
Yeah, you complete the short passes. You don't think as much about mechanics and you just go out and play, and that's what it allowed him to do. Take a look at this. This is Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report tweets this out. Watson through 3 weeks and the improvement. So overall offense tied for 15th, that's up from last week. Passing 16th, that's up from last week. Rushing 22nd, down from last week, that's minus Nick Chubb. Big time throw percentage tied for 14th, up from last week. Turnover worthy throws tied for 9th best, that is up from last week. So again, everything trending up with the offense and Deshaun Watson. And, you know, I said he needed to play better. He certainly played a whole lot better than we've seen him. And I don't, you know what? This is not an outlier for him. That's kind of the way he's played.
Yeah, and you touched on trending up. That's exactly what we needed to see. He needed this so much because if he had had a repeat performance of what he did on Monday night in front of the home fans, this thing could have took a nosedive pretty easily. You know, it could have got ugly in there. And you touched on it. That's exactly like if you watch his full body of work, this isn't out of character from what he was doing in Houston. That's kind of an average game for what he was doing in Houston. It just happens to be the best game he's played in Cleveland. But that's exactly what we need to see. It was the trending that way. Now this can't be an aberration though. This is something he needs to stack on. You know, he needs this. They need to set the bar with this level of play and just build upon it week after week.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of what he does when he's going well. So Kevin Stefanski talked about getting input from players in play calling.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've always done. I tell you guys all the time, those players have the best seat in the house. That they can see it better than we can. And Amari is a very, very intelligent player, so it's not like he's just coming up and saying, get me the ball, which he has done before. But he can give you great insight into the routes that he thinks we should run and how we should run them, how we should set them up, those type of things.
And Casey, a lot of fans beat Kevin Stefanski up about his play call. That's why the players respond, and he truly does listen and want input from them.
Yeah, we have short memories as fans. In 2020, it was kind of known that they were going to each positional room and kind of getting their input to build their game plans. You know, the offensive linemen were having say in the run game. And then, you know, the wide receiver room and quarterback room, it's a collaboration. But people want to pin things on one person. So I think that's the easiest way to do it. It's just look at the guy who's calling the plays and everything's his fault. You know, but when it goes right, he deflects just like he does and kind of leans on the players. And you have to. That has to be a collaborative effort. I think the days of my way or the highway in this league are long gone. You know, there's no iron fist play caller. Like, you don't think Andy Reid's taking input from Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes? Of course he is, you know. Just for the Browns, I think like a player like Amari Cooper, like you'd be very wise to listen to him. He's seen a lot of things and he knows what works.
So former NFL wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson on what he saw from Deshaun Watson against the Titans and what he thinks about the game against the Ravens.
He erased the mistakes that plagued him prior to that, right? Yeah. 0 turnovers. You know how I feel about those turnovers. Couple touchdowns. And then when you think about Baltimore, man, they lost to Gardner Minshew and the Indianapolis Colts. Man, stop.
That's 7 starters.
Like, I don't care. They win games.
Deshaun did throw a weird backward pass, so I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
It's an interesting reason to pick the Ravens, but okay. But to Keyshawn Johnson's point, you know, the completion percentage was up. The turnover was one that Elijah Moore got ripped out of his arms.
Yeah, and he did make that low football IQ move of throwing the ball backwards, but that was an anomaly in that game. He was clean otherwise, and he didn't really put the ball in danger, you know, down the field. And if you can do that with this defense, and you can just keep your side clean, man, it's going to be hard pressed for any team to beat you, let alone the Ravens, who are decimated with injuries right now. They are just riddled. It's going to be it's going to be interesting just to watch the injury report kind of unfold as the week goes to see who's actually going to go for Baltimore.
Yeah, they got some guys back at practice, so it'll be again. You know, we'll see. You know, the one thing that's really interesting, and fans are going to have to learn to. Deshaun Watson's going to make some plays because he has such a belief in his arm and his ability. There's going to be some plays where you kind of go, ugh. But that's kind of the trade-off to the scrambling around and extending plays and making big plays. There's a balance that comes with that. We haven't had a quarterback that's been able to make plays before. So Browns fans are going to have to get used to some of the negative things that come with a guy that can keep a play going forever.
Yeah, that's the trade-off. You have to live with that because he can extend plays and he believes in himself to make plays. So he's going to try to make some things happen and maybe puts too much on himself at times. But as you see in his history, which is a large body of work, in Houston, he was able to do that. So, of course, he believes in himself. He's actually seen proof of concept in himself. So, yeah, the fans are going to have to learn to live with it. There's going to be some negative plays just based on the way he goes about playmaking outside the pocket and outside of structure. But that's also where you can hit pay dirt. And I think as long as that's a possibility and fans start to see that come to fruition, I think they'll learn to live with it in time.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216 and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at some more of Myles Garrett working against the Titans and some trade rumors that involve the Browns that you'll want to hear. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily as well as Network 216. So former offensive lineman Brian Baldinger breaking down some tape of Myles Garrett. This is a second part of it. We showed you a little bit earlier. Here's more of a former offensive lineman looking at Myles Garrett game against the Titans.
Here we go. He knew from the third play that his bull rush was going to work in this game. There's nothing that Dillard could do. He couldn't stop the power. Almost had that ball intercepted. This is 3rd and 10 with 13 seconds to go and a half. 3rd and 10. There's no timeouts. You take a hit, you take a sack, the half is over. Myles Garrett gets there. No points before the half. And then this right here. You watch and you go, they want to double over here on Za'Darius? Okay. All right. I don't know why they would do that when this guy needs all kinds of help over here. Look at the angle that he's rushing at. Look at this. Look at the power angle right here. It's not going to stop until he hits Tannehill and takes him down. What a day for Myles Garrett. We've seen T.J. Watt. We've seen Nick Bosa win Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe it's time for Myles Garrett.
And again, Casey, one of the reasons we like looking at Brian Baldinger, that gives you a technical perspective from somebody who's tried to stop a guy like Myles Garrett.
What can you say? He's a mutant. The power that he keeps while he's doing that bend around the corner, it's insane. It's unfair for offensive tackles, and he even drew a holding call. I didn't know it was legal to throw flags for holding against Myles Garrett. It's almost like he's Shaq in the 90s. It's a different game for him. But he gets held all the time and doesn't get that flag. But if it's an indication of the respect he's starting to get, maybe they'll see more of him. Baldy's right. Why? And that's the thing. This defensive line is very talented, and it can hurt you in a myriad of different ways. But if you're going to double team Za'Darius and you're going to leave someone on the island with Myles, you're just setting your player up to fail.
Yeah.
What's crazy is he kind of got drugged last week because he didn't, notch any sacks. He had a higher pass rush win rate last week than he did this week. He's just doing this week in and week out. It's to be expected at this point.
So I know you wrote an article for Dog Pound Daily, Stock Up, Stock Down. We know Myles Garrett's stock is up based on what we just saw. Who else's stock was up in that article?
Well, you could name a ton of defenders, so we're going to just summarize this in Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz stock all the way up. And they did retool the defensive line, but most of these players were already here. It's the utilization of personnel, though. He's putting these players in the best position to succeed. Take a player like Grant Delpit. His usage has been phenomenal. You know, he's playing a little bit of single high, but just a touch. He's in the box more. He's playing slot. He's in these positions where he can affect the game because of his skill set. And then the man defense, he's running on the corners with Denzel and Emerson. It's chef's kiss. But it's the embodiment that he's bringing where these players are just kind of gravitating towards his attitude. And you can see it on the field. These guys are flying around. They're having fun. They're playing for each other. And it's just something we haven't seen here before. So Jim Schwartz stock all the way up.
Yeah, without question. You could say Cooper and Watson as well because they played really well. All right, this is the portion of the show that's brought to you by the Ohio Lottery as we're talking some potential trade targets for the Browns. ESPN analysts on a potential Jonathan Taylor trade. Dan Graziano, the Browns might end up being more motivated to make a deal than they want us to believe after the Nick Chubb injury. Jeremy Fowler, Cleveland does make some sense, but Browns GM Andrew Berry never shies away from a potential deal. Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt is a pretty good tandem. Again, there's no way they're trading for Jonathan Taylor if it costs a first or a second round pick. Yeah. If it comes down, never say never with Andrew Berry.
Yeah, allegedly the Colts already turned down a 2. So if they're not willing to entertain a 2, I don't think the Browns are going to be candidates. But you have to understand the trade deadline's not till Halloween. Who knows what this looks like by then? You know, if the Colts get a better indication that Taylor's just not going to suit up for him, they might drop their price. But say the Browns are sitting at 5-2, but their rushing game hasn't really kind of taken off. Maybe they enter those discussions. You know, but as long as the price tag remains that high, I can't see the Browns being a player. For Taylor in particular.
Would agree wholeheartedly. So this one from the Bleacher Report, and it's surmising that a potential Derrick Henry trade occurs. The Browns could be interested in buying low on the 3-time Pro Bowler as they continue to seek ways to replace Chubb's production. Cleveland added Kareem Hunt, but Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford combined for a mere 58 yards rushing against Tennessee on Sunday. Again, tell me what it's going to cost me. And I'm sure that's what Andrew Berry, if Andrew Berry's, you know, what's it cost?
Yeah, it's a cost versus reward. You get an older player at this point. And I don't know what Henry has left in the tank. He, you know, this season he really hasn't been able to get off. They haven't really, actually he's being outsnapped by Tyjae Spears. So are they telling you through his usage that they're kind of moving on from him anyway? I mean, that's something to watch. But did you see the other potential landing spot? I could see him winding up in Baltimore. And I'm not keen on that. I don't need to see that movie.
Yeah, you know what? If the Titans fall way out of contention and they're not going to re-sign him and it costs you a 5th or 6th round pick, kick the tires. Yeah. See what
that's Barry's wheelhouse. 5th and 6th round picks. He'll deal those.
That's why I said it. All right, this one's also interesting. This one from Heavy.com. So Davante Adams not happy, and they are surmising that he may ask to be traded. Matt Lombardo from FanBuzz labeled the Browns as one of 6 teams who could make a move for Davante Adams if he ends up being shopped by the Las Vegas Raiders. And again, they mentioned Nick Chubb's injury. And that's the reason everybody is adding potential players to the Browns. Adams, again, what's it cost?
What's it cost and how does he implement into the team? I don't look at this team as being a wide receiver away. I just think as long as they get, you know, adequate play out of Watson, I think they have the adequate weapons on the outside. But the price tag comes down to it. Sometimes receivers, high profile receivers sometimes net a return that leaves you puzzled because someone like, I think what did Davante have, 170 yards in the last game? Like he's definitely still in the peak of his powers. But what can the Raiders get for him right now, especially if other teams know they're desperate? You know, I think Andrew Berry would entertain getting an elite player like Adams, but if the Raiders are asking for too much, they'll walk away from that deal.
All right, before I let you go, Ravens, what do you see as have to get done to get a win? You go to the bye week 3-1. That would be very, very nice.
Yeah, 3-1 feels way better than 2-2. it's kind of puzzling because the Browns are like destroying teams at home. I think 51-6 so far, and to get this game at home feels good. But you have to understand they have yet to win the turnover battle in any game, and still doing this. And this defense has been so close to getting turnovers, and they just have narrowly escaped them. At some point, that stops. At some point, they're going to be able to turn that valve on, and it's going to just cascade on teams. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for them to finally win that ledger, win that battle. Net 3-4 turnovers in a game, and see what the offense can do with the extra possessions.
I'm with you. We mentioned it yesterday. Only 2 teams are worse than the Browns. Browns are -5. 2 teams are -7. Again, turnovers usually add up to wins, especially if your defense is playing like the Browns. Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily, Network 216. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.